Hey everybody, it's Joe from Greenlight Sound and greenlightsound.com, and today I have a quick video on how we can use saturation to bring some punch to a snare drum in a mix. So the first thing I want to do is just play the snare sound by itself. Here it is. Pretty good. In the context of the full mix though, actually not the full mix, the instrumental track, no vocal tracks in yet, but the full instrumental track. Here is the snare drum sound in the context of that. It sounds decent already. It has some good punch to it, but it's just not as consistent in the bottom end where the meat of the snare drum is as I'd like it to be. It already has been processed a bit. I have an SSL style channel strip plugin with some EQ and VCA style compression going on. I have an 1176 style FET compressor as well. And here is Fabfilter Saturn, the saturation plugin we're going to be looking at today. Right now it's bypassed, nothing's going on, but we can engage the plugin. And one of the cool things about Saturn is it can operate in multiband configuration. So we want to do that. I don't want the high end affected too much by the saturation, but more the low end. So I just click this plus sign to create a new split point or crossover frequency between the two bands. And I'm going to drag this bar to around the 640 hertz mark. And I want to work primarily with that lower end of the signal below 640 and nothing above. That'll get too sizzly up there if you put a lot of saturation on the top end. I'll try that later so you can hear it, but I want to focus now on the lower end of the signal. Another thing we want to do here is operate the plugin in MidSide mode instead of the standard stereo configuration. Because the snare drum track here is made up of the snare top and snare bottom and a snare sample. So it has some stereo information in it, the snare sample. I want to focus mainly on the center frequency or the center signal and not so much the side sort of room tone. Okay, so the way we do that is take this outside ring and drag it down toward M, mid. So the more you pull it this way, the more mid signal is affected. The more you go the other way, the more sides is affected. So right here, mostly mid is what we want. I'm going to stick with the standard saturation style. You can choose from many different types of saturation. The top half or so is really good for general saturation between the tube and tape here. Gentle saturation works too. Some of the others, the amps especially, and down here the smudge, rectify, and destroy are more either effects or used on like a DI guitar track to simulate a heavy distorted amplifier. But warm tape works well for this situation. Okay, so I'm going to play the snare track in solo again, push the drive up until I have a sound that I like. Seems like around the 80% range is sounding pretty good. Hear how much fuller it gets in the lower end with that saturation engaged. So now in the context of the mix with the saturation. And without, I'll bypass the entire plugin. Back in. Out. Back in. It just sounds to me like there's more stability in the bottom of that signal. You can get a lot more punch through, and it cuts through the mix better, having that saturation in the lower end. If I were to move up to the top end of the signal, all the frequency above 640 hertz, and push the drive, here's the sound you'll get. I'll turn off the lower end saturation and go to just the top end. And you can hear how that gets kind of ugly fast. You hear, it's almost like the bottom snare sound would normally be. Like you can hear the snares themselves more prominently and just a lot of sizzle, and we don't really want that. So I prefer not to affect that part of the signal. Turn that part off, turn the bottom end back on. Here it is again. And that's it. An easy way to add some depth, some weight, and some lower end punch to a snare drum using saturation. There would be a bunch of different alternatives to Fabfilter's saturation plugin here that you could use. Soft tubes, saturation knob would work well, though it's not multi-band, it's free, and you can use that to sort of beef up the signal. So there's no shortage of saturation plugins you can use today, but Fabfilters is cool in that it works in multi-band mode. It has a lot of other features you can use as well. If you have any questions or comments, let me know in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.